So thank you all for being here on this another webinar. I want to start by, I'll introduce myself for those that don't know me. Hold on, I'm having a little difficulty seeing people. Hold on. Okay, that's better. My name is Nicole Christensen. I'm the founder and CEO of Care Answered, which provides patient advocacy and care coordination. I'm a board certified patient advocate and author of the book From Crisis to Calm, Patient Advocates Take on Healthcare Coordination for You, the Common Caregiver. So thank you so much again for being here. And I'm really delighted to have the amazing presenters that we have here today. I said last webinar, if you were here, that the presenters were part of the Care Answered family because we share clients and we work together. And this time, the presenters are actual family. So I'll tell you a little bit about them. First is my brother, Harlan L. Greene. He is an executive chef and has a lot of experience working with people and providing excellent food for different dietary needs and diagnoses. And I'll tell you.
No, he was really a chef.
Yes, you can't talk. Yes, he is really a chef. And Jen Faith Brown is my friend since about the 3rd grade, Jen. And she is an acclaimed actress and singer, as well as a registered drama therapist. And I'll talk a little bit more about her in a minute. So just housekeeping questions. Again, if you have any questions, or comments, you can put it in the chat. If you're not familiar, you can put your mouse at the bottom of your screen and a lot of things will pop up. One will be a chat screen. So I'm gonna have that up on my desktop so I can see. So anytime you have a question, please put it in there. We'll leave time after we present so that you can ask questions. But you can type it in whenever they come to your head, as well as at the end when we're done presenting, we'll also leave time for questions, okay? I am going to start us off by talking about preparation for this new normal, as we hear the term. And the thing about it is I've heard some feedback regarding the phrase, the new normal. Most, I guess, loudly from my husband, and he hates that phrase. And I understand why, because nobody wants to think that what we're living in right now is going to be normal. And it's not going to be normal forever, I don't think, at all. But this is the state that we find ourselves in, and we, as a country and a world, are all in it. So we're in it together. And this is the normal for today. So we don't want to have fear. What we want to do is be prepared and not scared. And hopefully these webinars are providing tools and resources so that we can better assist ourselves, our clients, our loved ones during this time, okay? And I also want to just say that through any kind of crisis or difficult or challenging situation, there's always good that's going to come of it. And I believe that is true for this as well. We'll be potentially grateful for different things. We may spend our time a little differently with the people that we care about. We may have great changes to the healthcare system. I don't know what all the great things are going to come, but I know that they're going to come. So let's start with some of the information that we know. We know that people are self-isolating in their homes, especially if they think they have the virus or have tested positive for the virus. We don't want to spread the virus at all, right? So we have that as a reality. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to prepare for that, and how to just have the things that you need on hand so that you can convalesce at home. Then I'm going to talk about the reality of if we have to be hospitalized. We know we're going to the hospital by ourselves at this point. We won't have those that we care about or love or our caregivers with us. So what can we do to prepare for that and to have everything that we need so that so nothing can fall through the cracks? So let me start with that. The first thing, again, in self-isolating or recovering at home, there's some things that you should have available and that you can, hopefully we're relatively healthy now, to have in our homes. One of the things that we talked about last week in the webinar is telemedicine. So the first thing that we need to do is to be contacting our clinicians and making sure we know how to communicate with them. And a lot of it is going to be through telemedicine. So we want to make sure that that's already available to us and we know how to contact them. So what we should have available is a thermometer, right? So a thermometer, because we need to take our temperature and to see if it's going up or it's normalizing. We want to make sure we have that with us, okay? The other thing that we may not be used to having is an oximeter. So that is a device that measures the oxygen in your blood. This is important according to the clinicians because the virus can affect the oxygen in our blood. So we want to make sure that we have enough of it. So again, I am not a doctor, but this is information that I'm relaying to you from clinicians, but you should talk to your own clinician regarding all of these things. Over-the-counter medicines. A lot of people that are recovering at home, they have a cough, they have a sore throat, they have body aches. So make sure you have those things already available in your home if you have to isolate. So your cough medicine, your fever reducer, your pain relievers, all of those kinds of over-the-counter, have them available. The bleach wipes or the Lysol wipes, those kinds of things that we've been hearing about often. Again, we just want to make sure that we're not spreading it if there's somebody else that lives in our home or building. So we want to be able to keep our area clean and safe. I say towels in general because of fevers and that kind of thing, to just absorb the moisture and the sweat potentially. Comfortable clothes, right? Have comfortable clothes. I think all of us have those ready now, right? We've been in isolation for a while, so we have those, but just make sure that you have them available just in case. Food, like soups or things that are comforting and easy to swallow for you, make sure that you have those available. Access to water. Again, as Barbara has spoken about, drinking water helps our bodies. So especially when we have fevers and that kind of thing, because we're letting out a lot of water. So make sure that you have water available. And it doesn't have to be bottled water. I don't know where you live if you're concerned about the contamination of your water, but it doesn't mean you need to have bottled water. And then any regular medications. So for your general medications that you might have for different diagnoses, make sure you've had those filled and that they're available in your home in case you have to self-isolate. Again, we talked about this a little bit in the last webinar. Don't wait to the last minute to get your regular prescriptions, no matter what. Just make sure you have them on hand. Okay? So does anybody have any questions about being prepared in case you have to recover in your home? Okay, great. Oh. Okay, somebody asks, what about the information regarding ibuprofen, possibly the virus feeding it? I have heard those. I want to say first, again, I'm not a clinician, but I have heard of that. Last I checked, it was a small sample of people, I believe in Italy. I don't have there's no other proof I have of that, and there's not information I know a lot about, so I don't like to speak about things I don't know about. But there's obviously concerns about NSAIDs in general. So maybe Tylenol might be a better possibility for you. But again, I don't have real information on that. Thanks. That's a great question, though. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about, okay, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now I'm going to talk about the grab and go kit, okay, for ER or hospital. As I mentioned, we're going to the hospital or ER by ourselves. So we should have things in place in a kit, just like some people had when they were pregnant, right? You have that to-go bag just in case your water breaks. This is, I would say, even more important, okay? So what I would suggest that one creates is what is commonly known as a face page. It's kind of like a one-sheeter about you that would have your name, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, any allergies you have, an emergency contact. And the emergency contact should include, you know, phone number, email, and text, okay? And then if there's something that somebody should know about you, I've had clients that called concerned that, God forbid, something happened to them or their loved one, and their loved one has dementia. So that would be something that, other than just the diagnosis, which we'll talk about later, is to have that information about, okay, my spouse gets very agitated in new situations. So this is not unusual for him. So this is what I do to deal with that, to help him be more comfortable. Something like that. Or any kind of thing that you know about yourself, or you're talking about your loved one or your client, that would be helpful for any of the staff to know, to be able to better assist them. Additionally, medication list. Those of you that know me know that I talk about this probably ad nauseum, right? So your medication list should have all of your medications, what the medications are for, when you take them, and the dosage. So for example, if I'm picked up at 3 o'clock by an ambulance and I take a medication at 8 o'clock at dinner time, they will then know that I have not yet taken that medication. And all of that, all those pieces of information can make a difference. So please have that available. Any medical conditions that you have, past surgeries, past hospitalizations, that kinds of things should all be listed. I'm going to stop for a minute because I see people writing, which is fabulous, except that I will be sending this information to you for anybody that registered, okay? So also have your current physician list. So your clinicians' names and their contact information, a copy of insurance cards, your HIPAA release form that allows your healthcare information to be shared potentially with a loved one, as well as with maybe your primary care physician. There's also something called a protected health information sheet at each hospital. You can look that up and have that filled out for the hospital that's closest to you as well. Healthcare proxy form, again, something I talk about a lot. Healthcare proxy or agent is somebody that can make your healthcare decisions for you if you're incapacitated. So if you don't have one of those, you should get one in these times. That's, again, somebody that you trust, that you've already spoken to about what your healthcare decisions might be, so that they can then carry it out. Okay. The other is any kind of healthcare directives that you have, and a MOLST and a POLST form. That's a medically ordered life-sustaining treatment form. So that's done by your clinician. Again, I've spoken about that before. It's also in my book, but it's also in the webinars previously that you can find on the careanswered.com website. Power of attorney. Again, that's for making financial decisions, which are generally very much linked to healthcare decisions. So to make sure that you have that. And especially this list in general is for those that are 65 and over, as well as for those who have a pre-existing condition that make them more susceptible to the COVID-19 virus. So not all of these, all of us will have like a power of attorney. Maybe we wouldn't have this usually because of our age and our good health condition, but it's something to certainly think about. And if you need assistance with finding out somebody that could assist you with that, please feel free to contact Care Answered. The other thing that is very important for the grab and go kit is a cell phone and a charger, okay? A fully charged cell phone and a charger. I had somebody call me just a few days ago wanting to get assistance with finding her mother. That's at the Jacob Javits Center. They don't know how to contact her. They don't know where she is. And that she didn't have this grab and go kit. So that's going, and she didn't have a cell phone that was charged. So that's going to be really important to keep track and keep in contact with those we love or our clients to make sure that they're getting access to the care, and the care, those that are providing the care have all the information about our loved ones. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Okay, I have another question here. Hold on. Okay, the question is, what's the word on the street about laundry rooms? I haven't wanted to go into my building's laundry room, but I have no idea if I should worry. Okay, the word on the street, I like that term. It's something I use often. So the word on the street, again, is not, it's not that I'm an expert in this, but the fact is that they were talking about more that doctors are carrying the virus potentially on their feet, on their shoes, when walking from room to room. This is something that I've heard. I cannot verify it. But if that's a concern, then I would suggest, you know, washing your feet, the soles of your shoes down with Lysol or bleach before bringing them into your home. Other than that, I don't really know anything that's any different from anywhere else you are regarding wearing masks in New York, staying so many feet away from people. I'm guessing the concern is about the clothing that might be in there that might have the virus, be carrying the virus. But I cannot say with any authority about no, stay away from laundry rooms or don't. Somebody just said, Shelley just said they actually touched on this on Good Morning America this morning. I did not see that episode, so I don't know those answers. But we'll have Shelley, if you could type up what you heard them say, that might be really helpful as well. Any other questions about the grab and go or the isolation in place or recovery in place? Okay, great. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jen Faith Brown, who is a drama therapist. As I told you a little bit, she is a registered drama therapist, and she's also the executive director of Lightkeeper, which I am honored to be the president of the board. They provide drama therapy and education and many wonderful ways to access therapies and education through drama and other art forms. So Jenny, I am going to have you take it away from here.
Great. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is what is drama therapy, right? Because if you're like me, when I first heard that term or first heard somebody talk about drama therapy, it was something that I knew nothing about. So drama therapy is action-orientated, it's client-centered, and it really utilizes the creativity of the client to become their own guide in dealing with whatever their particular challenge is. So I love, Nicole, how you started this presentation talking about the new normal. And thinking about the new normal in COVID-19 means that we're kind of letting go of an old normal. And there can be a lot of grief, anxiety, depression that can go along with letting go of the old normal, what we knew of the old normal. And so how can we utilize drama therapy to kind of help us through this time of navigating the new normal, and what does that look like? Most drama therapy sessions have a structure which has a warm-up, a central activity, and a closure. We often utilize something called ritual, which gives us a normalcy for the client we're working with or the group that we're working with. So we might want to discover a ritual for letting go of the old way of doing things. So if I'm maybe even working with a child of mine, I might have a ritual of a poster board that we've set up of what our old normal looked like. I went to work, you went to school. We're going to set this particular pattern aside, and we're going to look at what the new normal is for today. And maybe we're going to create a poster board or design a new normal for us. And what does that look like? We also utilize something called distancing. So that is, we recognize the fact that whatever our challenge is, if it's anxiety, for example, it is not, we are not anxiety. Anxiety is something that's sort of hanging out with us for the moment. So if we're looking at that as an actor, we might think of anxiety as a character. And if you're working with a client, or you're working with perhaps a child that's in your home, you might create a muse for anxiety and work out a scene with anxiety. Anxiety, how long have you been hanging out with Jen? Have you noticed that you're becoming stronger during this experience? And what are the things that sort of help create more distance between you and Jen? Anxiety, right? So maybe that's folding in some of the creative things that are your particular creative outlets that you navigate to, which is different for every client. So it could be, if you're a visual artist, that maybe you're creating an art piece centered around anxiety. Or if you're a musician, you might write a musical piece about it. You might create a poem. There are all sorts of wonderful apps that you can utilize. This is especially effective for adolescents. There's one called Morpho, where you can actually design a computerized image and create a character called anxiety out of that. So it's really utilizing your creativity to help whatever challenges that's going on for you at this particular time. Are there any questions?
Jenny, can you touch on how people can access drama therapy for those it's new to?
Yes. One thing I'd like to say is all of our listeners, many of them are healthcare professionals, parents, educators, artists, that you can really think about the ways you've probably already utilized drama therapy without even knowing it. And I think that's a great first step. You don't need a drama therapist necessarily to utilize drama therapy techniques to help you through this time. So there are so many different ways into the process. I use a lot of narradrama. I was trained in the narradrama techniques of drama therapy, and that's really the stories that we tell ourselves. So we hear a lot during this time about positive thinking. So what does that mean? And how can we create that as something more active? So think about, what is the story that you're telling yourself? So if I'm working with a 4-year-old, for example, I might start with an actual story, reading them a fairy tale or any sort of a children's book, and really explain to them how every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And during this crisis, we are creating our own story within our own response to what's going on. So what is the beginning of our story? What is the middle going to be? What is the end going to be? And how are we in charge of telling our own story within this process? And what does that story look like? Which gives them that empowerment, right? To feel that they're more in control of this process of getting through this challenging time.
Jen, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? So what you're basically talking about is somebody, you have to find that person and find whatever their release valve may be to make them feel better. You mentioned a musician that maybe he's going to write a piece of music, or a writer is going to write out what his thoughts are and so on. That's what you're talking about, right?
That's exactly right. It's completely client-centered. So you're really finding out from your client what their creative process is. That's the thing I love about drama therapy specifically, is it does use all of the arts so that you really can let the client lead you. You always want to fold in distancing. So you're always looking for the dramatic process behind whatever their creative outlet is. So if it's art, for example, and they are drawing for you anxiety, right? You might work with them and that particular piece that they've created. You can create a whole story around that piece of art that they created, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So you might ask them, what title would you give this piece? What's going on within this piece? I noticed a sunset. What is the relationship between the sunset and the flower that's drawn here? If the sun were to say something to the flower, what might they say? So you can come into the dramatic process from whatever art form they have brought into your session.
Nice. Jenny, we have a question here about from Karen, and how, do you have any experience talking with clients with memory loss, who might not remember who we are and are feeling very isolated, or even reverting to where they used to be, like, where's my mom, during these kinds of things? Have you had an experience with drama therapy in that?
Yes, I've had a few experiences. I worked with nonverbal, non-mobile clients, and they had been really in a place where a lot of people thought there wasn't a lot going on. They were severely developmentally disabled. And I actually utilized a lot of Meisner technique, which is something I had never even thought about. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced Meisner, but it really is a way of connecting to your scene partner. As an actor, I might look to Nicole and say to her, you have brown eyes, and she would respond, I have brown eyes. And we would do this back and forth, and then in the moment that I would see an adjustment within her, I would change and say that adjustment I found in her. So something like, you smiled, I smiled, right? So it's really creating this connection that's very in the moment. And what I found with these clients is, when we were connecting with Meisner, I had to imagine that they were responding because they couldn't speak or move. But we found a connection with one another that allowed us to be within that particular moment. And we could connect with each other in the moment itself. And so I did a lot of storytelling and working through the imagination, and them imagining themselves doing whatever the goals were for that particular session. So within the session, there were specific goals that the organization I was working with wanted those clients to have. So I also used a lot of music. When I've worked with seniors with dementia, I found that finding the particular connection they had with music could bring those memories forward. So it really depends on your client. And if they do revert to like you might be talking about when a client might think of you as their daughter or whatever, that's happened to me as well. I found that just kind of staying in the moment with that client and working through where they are in that place can help them come back to center. You may also want to utilize things that are tactical.
I think working in the moment is so important, and I think that's a really important point for all of us, right? We're in this moment. And I do believe that with music, and I've seen, at least myself, within music and just being in that moment and trying to be with that person in their moment really, really can assist. Thank you, Jenny.
Right.
I muted myself. Sorry about that. So let me now introduce, again, please keep on filling in your questions if you have them. Again, let me further introduce Harlan Greene. And he's got 35 years of experience being a chef. And as I mentioned before, a chef for people with different health conditions and different needs as far as food, but still providing them fine dining experiences. And in addition, he's going to talk to us a little bit about how to fuel ourselves during any kind of crisis or challenge, but especially this one, utilizing the food that we have, keeping our food and selves safe when it comes to cooking and eating. So without further ado, my favorite chef, Harlan Greene.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm just here trying to help you guys out in what I see of what's going on. Like the first day of the destruction of stores, I walk in there and what I saw that was taken away was more of the frozen foods and of that nature. My first thing is that you probably want to stay away from things like that because of the high sodium rate and the low protein. It is really not good for you. It'll get you through the day, but it'll put weight and bring up your high blood pressure, which is not good for anybody when you're going to be sitting at home for long periods of time. What I would suggest is, break out the pressure cooker, clean up the grill. It's springtime. Enjoy the time that you have and start some springtime grilling. Enjoy the fresh foods and stuff like that. What I've also found that we need to be careful on things, okay? For real. And I was listening to a radio show and these people were like, oh, what I do is I wash my vegetables, especially with vegetables. I say vegetables because people touch them, and whether they wear gloves or whether they don't. The people put them up on the shelves, and do they wear gloves? I don't know. People that touch them, like avocados and stuff like that, tomatoes, see if they're ripe, they touch them with gloves? I don't know. So they really need to be washed. I want to preface that you really need to wash your vegetables. But what I've heard was people washing vegetables with soap and water. That is not the way to go. There are so many other ways to go. The simplest one is they sell at the store in a spray bottle a cleaner for your vegetables. There's really only two ways to go about it. Either you soak and dry, or spray. And the ones that you want are that you don't have to rinse off, but you can. It's no big deal. Uh, and there's all sorts of natural ways to do it, from the use of natural vegetable DIY ways to do it, from use of turmeric, uh, uh, as we're just with orange thymes, you could peel the oranges, soak them in vinegar, and then take it out and put it in a squeeze bottle and spray, and then you're going to have to rinse that off because the flavors are strong, and to wash them off, but then you're clean and you're fresh of any contaminant, which is really what we're looking for. There's another one that is a lemon and baking soda that you could put in a spray bottle. I could give you ways to do it if you need to, and I'll type it up, but you can look it up in anywhere online. Uh, but there's also something else I was trying to say at the beginning, that we're eating a lot of food and we're sitting around and watching TV. There's things that we need to do that will at least help you out. So for what I would suggest, at the minimum of 4 days a week, take a walk. Take a walk, at least, like, find your distance. First start at the end of the block, put on your earphones, walk for half an hour, and that will at least take part of your day away and will really make you feel better. See, it's springtime, so flowers are blooming, and you can see it as it goes down your block. I have cherry blossoms there. I have pear trees over here that are growing and doing that. Looks like snow everywhere. It is healthier. Bike rides. We need to do that, not only for health reasons because the gym's not open. There's no way to get your exercise. There are videos that you could do at home, but the walk is nice just to get just to get outside the house, and you could have conversation with family, and you could put down the video games, you could put down the TV, let the broadband do its thing, and you don't have to end cabin fever. That's what we want to do and keep ourselves safe. So that is one thing that I suggest. Another thing that I suggest to keep up with, to keep your metabolism going and the weight off, is having more meals. Everybody's like, yeah, more meals, but smaller stuff, like have an apple instead of a pint of Ben and Jerry's, which I love Ben and Jerry's, I'm not gonna lie, and there's all sorts of candy and stuff and wonderful high sugar things that are out there, but maybe you should take the time, come into the kitchen and learn how to make your own granola bars. My favorite thing to make with my ice cream machine is sorbets, and it's very easy and super delicious, and you have total control of the sugar levels. And that is another thing where you can bring family in and have those wonderful smells of freshly cooked oatmeal raisin cookies. You can have, there's a plethora of things that you can do that can make you feel good, bring up your energy, and not put on the pounds. This is where we need to go in our new normal, or whatever you want to call it. We need to work on that. Another thing that the restaurants have been trying to do this for a little bit, and it's a little harder, but it's Meatless Monday. Meatless Monday, which is a way to that when you buy your fresh vegetables on Friday or Saturday and you're eating them at the peak, then you could have them on Monday. And Monday is a perfect time to just say, okay, this is what I'm going to eat. I'm going to have some beautiful vegetables. I'm going to make it in different ways. And it is good for you. It's good for the planet. And it will help with your digestion from sitting down on the couch and stuff like that. I really try to push that. If you could do it 2 days a week, that would even be better, to go for a full day without ingesting any meat byproduct at all. I mean, fish is fine, but you know, and I understand that it's hard to do, but it'll make you feel 100% better. Excuse me while I look at my notes that I have here. Okay. Excuse me.
In the meanwhile, Harlan, while you look that up, there's some questions here.
Oh, there's questions.
One of the questions Nancy wrote is, besides the spray that you're talking about, which may not be available, maybe the grocery stores have run out of it some places, are you suggesting that we clean our fresh vegetables with water and vinegar?
I'm suggesting that you can. What I would suggest, moreover, is that you use it because it's not just pesticides that you're killing at this point. You really want, there's a virus, and you have to break this outer. Think of the virus like a Ferrero Rocher, right? You know, the candy, it has a shell on the outside, and then on the inside is the problem. But you have to break that down, and you need something more than just water. There was a time that we used to use sulfites for it, but that was killing people. Back in the days of salad bars and stuff like that. I'm suggesting that you need people are suggesting soap and water. I'm trying to get soap and water is,
it's not the way to go.
It's not the way to go.
So there are different online kind of recipes for vegetable washes.
Right, DIY and DIY stuff is a very good way to go.
I know that you had mentioned the turmeric one, so maybe that's one that we can look up online.
Yes, it's nice, but there is color that you're going to have to deal with.
It's a little orangey.
Yeah, yellow, but but that would be more for a greener veg. You don't want to do that unless you're going to make a curried, say, cauliflower, to use it on something that's white.
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going to hit you with the questions. Do you know anything about the Ninja Grill air fryer for people that are not allowed to use, gas or charcoal in their home? Mm-hmm.
I know
anything about it.
I know of them. Listen, if you're going to cook food, grilling is the best way to do it as far as fat goes. And the only bad part about grilling is the actual use of coal. So that would be a good way to go.
Sounds good. And it's pretty popular. I hear about it a lot. Right. The other one is some suggestions or websites on veggie recipes. Lots of people don't like them, even though that they know that they should eat them. So they were wondering if you have any tips, or if we could send people some tips on some delicious ones that they can start out with.
Delicious ones. Well, you know what? This is what's going on now, because people are at home and they're not, you've been relying on going to stores and making the 2, 3, 4 things that you make, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the restaurant to pick something up. For the other days, they have allowed Jack Pepin. They've allowed the complete works of Julia Childs for free. There is the Food Network will have everything that you want on vegetables. They also are doing food shows, and they had you can find it on YouTube. They have complete vegetable ideas and food ideas for you. It was absolutely wonderful to see Jack Pepin, and if you don't know who he is, he's an amazing French chef, and I've followed him for a long time. In fact, the other day I was enjoying they had the Cajun chef. If you don't remember the Cajun chef, you'll remember it's like, I guarantee. And they had his whole show on. They had Paul Perdone, and it was good to see him around. My old chef, Susan Spicer, they had on the New Guard, and she was making some great chefs in New Guard. It was taking place in New Orleans back in the 90s when I was working with her.
So just so everybody knows, Harlan spent a great deal of time as a chef in New Orleans. So hence why all that. So and Adam actually put up that he loves the Yumly app, which I'm not familiar with. So that's great suggestion as well. And Harlan, I know with your experience, again, as a chef as well as a personal chef, is there any way that people in New York or Long Island can access food that's ready-made by somebody with your kind of expertise?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do that because I started coming up with the idea for a while ago, before this corona situation happened, because my dad, you know, he passed with Alzheimer's, and I realized that elderly folks if they had a caregiver, the caregiver couldn't make food, so you would have to buy those horrible frozen food things and give it to them to heat up. So before I was processing to the starting of feeding the elderly, but now I'm branching out to everybody. Well, you know, people don't cook nowadays, so what are they doing now? They, 3-4 days a week, they're trying to make chicken cutlets, mac and cheese. And those things are delicious. I am not going to lie. They are absolutely delicious, but 3 days of it is not going to do well, So what Lamonia Catering is, the company that I have, is starting to do is create foods for everybody, and not just like you pick up from a restaurant where you pick up one meal and it's still going to cost you the price of restaurant prices, which will nobody has a ton of money, and if you do, God bless, but nobody has a ton of money to feed themselves. So we're working on making decent priced meals and smaller, which is what we need to do, which is what I was trying to get at before, was a smaller meal and more meals for the whole day. So instead of 3 meals, which is never, it's too much for your body to deal with. And that's why you get tired after eating such a big meal. If you look at Europe, our smallest meal is their largest. So the meals will get you, everything will get you through the day, from cereals to for your breakfast. We have lunch, we have snacks, and dinner. Dinner will be the smallest meal because, if you've walked during the day, excellent. But after that, you're watching TV. So you just want something to say, this is dinner. So it would be smaller, but, still like grilled asparagus, panko crusted salmon, chicken franchise, things that you got used to having, and also on the lighter side. If you don't cook, the most you should be able to do is 5 days, which is really even 5 days of food, and which would be delivered twice a week, is a lot.
Okay.
That would
So
be.
Harlan, so I'm sorry to interrupt. So we'll send that information over to everybody, the contact information for Lamonia Catering, if that's something that you might be interested in as well.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, don't say
I
sorry.
feel like I tend to,
You're agreeing, just like me. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Did anybody, I know it's, it's 3:55. So I want to be mindful of your time.
Yes.
Are there any other questions that people may have? I don't see anything. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much. Thank you to Jen and Harlan for being here to present, and thank you all for being here. And we'll be back next week with some more coping strategies and information regarding from crisis to calm. And I look forward to seeing all of your beautiful faces again soon.